Dr. Jimmy Gutman is a board-certified emergency physician who now practices family medicine. He received his training at the University of Calgary and took up his residency in emergency medicine at Emory University in Atlanta, Georgia, where he was chief resident. Upon his return to Canada, he went on to an accomplished career, eventually becoming the undergraduate director and residency training director of emergency medicine at McGill University in Montreal. He has been an organizer of many international medical conferences as well as a speaker and has contributed to the training of literally thousands of doctors and students. He has sat on the boards of numerous academic and medical institutions dealing with policy and education, and he is often heard on radio and television across North America speaking about the role of GSH in health and sickness. Ladies and gentlemen, our keynote speaker tonight, please welcome Dr. Jimmy Gutman.
Thank you. Wow, you're good. You're good. So what do you think, Garth Brooks or Britney Spears? I hope it's Garth Brooks. Let's get right into it. Wow, I always get anxious looking at my own picture. Thank God I didn't wear the same tie. So how are you all doing? See, that's the polite answer, okay? But when a doctor asks you, how are you doing? Generally, we want to know, how are you doing with your health? So, yeah, there you go. It's somebody who's honest. How are you doing? See, it's not that vigorous a response, is it? The idea of tonight's conference is to give you some tools to survive the 21st century. Now, I know that sounds rather severe, but at least it gets your attention. And I tell you, the challenges that we're up against these days are unlike anything in the history of mankind. Now, Deborah said that there weren't going to be any quizzes, but she's wrong. I'm going to give you a little quiz over here. I'm going to show you some pictures, and I want you to think of a phrase or a statement that links all of these pictures, a common idea. Here we have a picture of a bunch of smokestacks spewing out pollution in East End, Montreal. Of course, you here in Kelowna don't have that problem. Actually, you do have that problem. Yeah. And you don't have to be near these things. I mean, there's evidence of pollution that started off in the South Pacific and in China that makes its way over into your air that you're breathing in. There's another picture. One of my patients sick in bed, thermometer in his mouth, having a virus. Any similarities between those two slides? Any common ideas? Think, think, think. Grandma, 92 years old. You ask her how she's doing, and she says, great. But she's suffering from a chronic illness that each and every single person in this room is suffering from. And I hope you suffer from this for a long, long time. What am I talking about? Absolutely. The alternatives of not aging are not good. My secretary, Monday morning, 325 emails to answer. And what's going on with her? So what's common? What common thread do you think you can weave between all of these shots? Who said that? What's your name? Mandy? Mandy gets a free book. Mandy gets a free book on me. See, here's another shot. It has to do with the immune system. Here's somebody, and you can appreciate this. It looks like he's wearing chemical warfare gear. And what is he doing? He's spraying vegetables that you and I are going to eat. And this kind of nonsense goes on and on and on. So really, it's all about the immune system. And there are many definitions of the immune system, but really the one that's most practical is your body's defense. Your immune system is your defense against all of these nasty things. So how do you take care of your immune system? Well, you don't need to speak to a health professional. You can probably speak to Deborah's mom, who I spoke to before. Where is she? Who's a very, very sharp individual, and she'll tell you the way to take care of your immune system. Well, eat well, sleep well, exercise, manage your stress. Don't drink too much BC wine. Okay, I take that one back. That was totally politically incorrect. Well, eat well. What does that mean? Here you are, sitting in the basin of one of the world's richest food-producing areas. And I know some of you eat junk food, but even if you're going out to the farmer's market, does that mean that you're eating well? Everybody in Kelowna is so smart. If I would have asked this in Toronto, everybody would have said, yeah. Don't show this tape in Toronto, okay? So, well, I think that if you're out there trying to get fresh fruits and vegetables, you're trying to eat well, but you're not necessarily eating well, because in the year 2015, you know, the peach that you're going to eat today is nothing like the peach that your mom gave you when you were a kid. Just ain't the same. Are y'all sleeping well? Well, just statistically, half of you are not sleeping well. And this will have an effect on your immune system. Not just on your immune system, get this, and your research also suggests if you're not sleeping well, you're probably getting fat. And that has to do with weight loss and weight control. So, not sleeping well. Y'all exercising? This is a crazy city. This is a crazy city. Good, good, good. One of the healthiest cities in Canada. I believe it. I believe it. And having spoken to the health professionals last night, which included doctors, naturopaths, pharmacists, I absolutely believe it, because they are right on top of their game. They knew all about this stuff. So although you have a shortage of GPs here, the ones that you have and the other ancillary healthcare professionals are great, beyond great. Good for you. Stress management, again, okay, doesn't work. No one in Kelowna has stress. Lifestyle, well, these are bottles of beer, but it should have been bottles of BC wine. Okay, but that, those are things that any intelligent person who's been around any amount of time could tell you. It doesn't have to be a health professional. But there's going to be something else added to this list in the next few years. It's certainly on my list, and that's raise your glutathione levels. Glutathione. And that might be a bit of a mouthful, but it's something that you already have in your body. Every cell of your body manufactures glutathione. And if that's for me, tell them I'm busy. Glutathione has been called a lot of things, but it really is one of the most important things to protect you from getting sick. Now, who's not heard of this word before? Okay. Generally, most people have not heard of glutathione before, but I guarantee you that in the next 2 or 3 years, everybody will be using the word glutathione as commonly as we use words like antioxidant, because there's been well over 100,000 medical articles written on this topic. And this is an avalanche of information that is going to come crashing onto your websites and health magazines and newspapers. This is I like to say cutting edge, but really it's been around in the medical community for a while. It just hasn't raised its head and raised the level of awareness. And we managed to fix that, some of that a little bit last night. So glutathione, what does glutathione do? When I speak to a medical audience, I can talk about 40 or 50 things that glutathione does in your cell. But for y'all, since I don't want to put you to sleep before 9 o'clock, we can talk about 3. And the way to remember those 3 is to remember the word AID. What does this stand for? A stands for antioxidant. I stands for the immune system. And D stands for detoxification. Let's look at these in turn. Now, I hope I'm not patronizing anybody here because I didn't know who's going to show up and what your backgrounds are. So I'm just going to review a few things. Antioxidants. If you want to know what an antioxidant is, you need to know what an oxidant is. You need to know what oxidation is. And here's some common examples. Some nails, I left in the backyard for a couple of weeks. What happened? They rusted. This is oxidation. Same day, I left a tub of butter out in the sun. What happened? My wife turned rancid, and so did the butter. This is oxidation. And what happens when you cut an apple in half and leave it on your counter for 20, 30 minutes? It turns brown. This is oxidation. So am I suggesting that the people in this room are becoming rancid and turning brown? Yeah. Yeah, I am. And if you look at the back of your hand, if you're a certain age, you're certainly you're going to see what we call liver spots, which actually have nothing to do with the liver, but have everything to do with the fact that your tissues are becoming oxidized. Okay? Now, do I care that this nice lady has brown spots in the back of her hand? I don't care that much is on the back of her hand, but I know that if it's on the back of her hand, the same process is taking place in her lungs, in her heart, in her brain. So we've got to do something about this. And this is the whole new field of medicine that we call free radical biology. It deals with oxidation and antioxidation. Simple as that. And we know that there's literally hundreds of disease processes that antioxidants can either prevent or even treat. Okay, so this is very, very important. And in Kelowna, everybody knows about antioxidants. I know that. So when I use words like antioxidants, free radicals, oxyradicals, don't let these terms overwhelm you. They all deal with antioxidation and oxidation. Okay? So what causes free radicals? How do we get our levels of oxidation up? We do that by being alive. If you're living and you're breathing and you're eating, you're producing free radicals. And these free radicals, sometimes they're good, but when you have too much of them, then they cause damage in your body. They're highly toxic little molecules. And the sneakiest thing about them is that a free radical, it's kind of like a vampire. If a free radical touches another molecule, it turns it into another free radical, and the process continues and continues. So let's look at a bunch of healthy cells, and here are your nasty free radicals on the side. And it'll drift over and touch one of the cells. And after a while, that cell becomes damaged. It's full of free radicals, but that cell's touching another cell. And that cell is touching yet another cell. And voila, here you go, a black spot on the back of your hand or in your brain. So how do we stop this process? We call in the cavalry, and the original antioxidants we knew about was vitamin C. And here we have the vitamin C looking suspiciously like a Pac-Man, and you'll see why. See, here's a vitamin C, and the vitamin C will go ahead and grab onto that free radical. Now that's great because it's neutralized the free radical. The problem is that it's also neutralized itself. So at this point in time, if nothing else happened, you would just get rid of this free radical antioxidant complex. When I say get rid of it, well, let me give you a real-life example. Did you ever look at the color of your pee after you've taken the vitamin C pill? And that's what you're seeing. You're peeing out your vitamin C free radical complex. If that was the case, we'd have to be eating fruits and vegetables all day long to continue this process. But there's something else going on that prevents us from having to do that. Up to this point, most of the people in the audience who know antioxidants, they get this. Let me show you something that's a bit new to some of you. The vitamin C can find a glutathione molecule or a complex of glutathione molecules. And watch what happens. It hands the free radical off to the glutathione, and there you go. It's liberated to continue to do more work. So it picks up another one, and the process can continue over and over again. And what's happening is that the glutathione is recharging, re-energizing this vitamin C molecule. And it's not just vitamin C. Every single antioxidant known to science, and there are thousands of them, do the same thing. They unload their free radicals into a glutathione system, and that is why we call glutathione the master antioxidant, because this whole process of antioxidation would not take place were it not for the glutathione molecule. So that's A, glutathione, the master antioxidant. I, the immune system. Why do we have an immune system? We have an immune system to make sure there isn't crap in our body. It's not supposed to be there. And when I say crap, I guess the medical term would be more accurately called a foreign antigen. And what kind of examples of foreign antigens do we have? Here we see a picture of bacteria. Now, do you all have bacteria in or on your body? You all nodding your head, yes. That was an easy quiz question. Here's the hard quiz question. Measured in weight, how much bacteria do you think you have in and on your body? Who said that? Excellent answer. You said 3 pounds. It's actually, that's very good. It's about 4 or 5 pounds of bacteria that we're schlepping around. You're healthy. Well, you see, most of the bacteria that we're schlepping around, though, is living in our intestines. And most of those are, in fact, good for our health. They help us digest food, and they're actually part of our own immune system. We have more bacterial cells in our body than we have human cells in our body. That's quite something. But these generally help out. These are good bacteria. But we have a mixture of good bacteria and bad bacteria. How does your body know what's a good bacteria and what's a bad bacteria? The immune system. If we didn't have an immune system to make that recognition, you die from the bacteria living in your colon. Here's another one. Here's a fungus growing in a plate. Do we have fungus on our body? Is there fungus among us? Yeah. You know, when summertime comes around, you go to the pool, or in Kelowna, you can actually go into a real lake, and you see these people walking around with these ratty-looking toenails, yellow and bent, and yeah, that's actually a fungus that grows underneath your toenail. Not that it's a major problem, unless you have a weak immune system. That same funny-looking toenail, if somebody with a weak immune system like an AIDS patient has that will kill an AIDS patient. And many AIDS patients die of overwhelming fungal sepsis. Viruses. How many new viruses have you read about in the last 5 years? The hot one now is Ebola, but there's always something else. I'm going to talk about viruses. Parasites. Do we live with parasites? And I'm not talking about your brother-in-law. When you go home tonight and you put your head on your pillow and lie down on your Sealy Posturepedic, you're crushing thousands of these. Yeah. Why is it that you're not all you're probably scratching now, but why is it that we're not covered in these? Why? Our immune system. And, I worked in emergency medicine for many, many years. People with weak immune systems, a chronic alcoholic comes in and they're festering with this stuff. Okay, so it's all about the immune system. And any of these, the next killer plague, man, oh man, it's less than a day away. Less than a day away. From Vancouver, anyways. Got to take another flight to Kelowna. So how does the immune system work to defend you from these critters? Okay. So I'm going to give you Immunology 101 in 90 seconds. So for the doctors who are in the room, please forgive me. We're going to oversimplify things. Okay, so our case subject today, y'all know him. How do people in Kelowna vote anyways? Conservative or liberal? Conservative. Okay, so I'm in trouble. That slide works really well in Quebec. And so here's the Prime Minister. He's probably out there now and working the crowd and kissing babies and shaking people's hands. And one of the hands that he's going to shake, somebody's going to have a cold. And they're going to have this nice glob of viral secretions on their finger. And pass it on to Mr. Harper, who then is going to be asked a tough question, and he's going to rub his eye or rub his nose, and giving that viral particle a chance to get into his body. And here we see very quickly, this little green guy here, there's a virus, surrounded by our frontline soldiers of the immune system are white blood cells. These white blood cells, these soldiers of the immune system, are always on alert to find something that's not supposed to be in your body, foreign antigen. So, foreign antigen, are we talking about one viral particle? In 20 or 30 minutes, Mr. Harper will have hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of viral particles in his body. But he's only got a fixed amount of white blood cells. There's only a set number of these soldiers. So what does he do? The white blood cells themselves will start to divide. They'll clone themselves. And they can divide upwards of 500 times in a healthy individual with good levels of glutathione. That's not 500 white blood cells, it's 500 divisions. So if you get a calculator, I guess your iPhone, you don't have enough room on the screen to see all those numbers. And here's the key. Without glutathione, that whole process grinds down to a halt. And people that don't have glutathione levels, by definition, are going to get sick from infectious disease. The classic case we have, of course, is HIV and AIDS. These patients are, by definition, glutathione deficient. They have immunodeficiency, but the same thing applies to hepatitis, to common cold, and on and on and on. So think of glutathione literally as food or fuel for your immune system. The higher your glutathione levels are, the more responsive your immune system is going to be. D, detoxification. Spoke a little bit about this last night. In emergency medicine, who's worked in an emergency room before? Okay, who's been in an emergency room before? There we go. Tends to be more common. One of the nastier things we need to deal with are people who are coming in with an intentional overdose. They don't want to be there. It's always a sad scene and usually a very messy scene, and you'll see why. What do you think the most common drug is to overdose on? It's actually alcohol. 50% of the cases of an overdose will have alcohol on board. But the next most common drug is acetaminophen. You all know what acetaminophen is? Tylenol, Adderall. It's a very, very ugly way to die. that if any of you took a big old bottle of extra strength Tylenol, it would probably kill you. But you didn't know that. Why do you think they make children's Tylenols in these little bottles? So when the little bugger opens it up and downs them all, he doesn't kill himself. And I say he because statistically it's usually a little boy that will do that. It's not an innocuous medication. It can cause a lot of harm. And the way it kills you, it takes its time. It takes about 2 to 5 days, after which your liver falls apart. Okay? I think it's a great thing that it takes 2 to 5 days to kill you. I think that's great. You're all looking at me like, what is this guy talking? It's great because usually after the night that you've had this impulse to do it, or you sober up, you wake up the next morning and you go, oh my God, what have I done? Either yourself or your friend or your spouse will drag you over to the emergency department. And if I can get my hands on you in 24 to 48 hours, I can save your life. See, I've got this 4 or 5 day window. I can save your life. How do I save your life? I save your life by raising your glutathione levels. So most doctors understand raising glutathione. Yeah, we do that in acetaminophen overdose. But what is not that well known, look at this list of toxins that we're exposed to every day of every week. And if this screen went down into the basement of the hotel, I can continue to fill the screen with toxins that we absolutely require glutathione for its elimination. Cigarette smoke, automobile exhaust, pesticides and herbicides. And why do I have a picture of fish here? Mercury, and on and on and on. Food that we eat, the stuff that we use to clean our floor, the fumes coming out of the paint on the wall, were it not for glutathione, we would succumb to the environment in days. And by no coincidence, the highest levels of glutathione to be found in your body is in your liver, which is, after all, your major organ of detoxification. So let's get onto a couple studies here. Here we see a graph. This is your age, 100, 80, 60, 40, and this is your glutathione levels in normal subjects. And you see the older you get, the lower your glutathione levels become. Somebody my age, between 30 and 60, I could be missing 20, 30, 40% of my glutathione levels where I'm not taking care of something. And what happens is as your glutathione levels drop, you open up the door to diseases of aging. Can you think of some diseases of aging? Alzheimer's, diabetes, Parkinson's, heart disease, cancer, certain cancers like prostate cancer, absolutely, that's a disease of aging. Alzheimer's. The list is long. So we see that the levels are dropping and dropping and dropping. But what's weird about this graph? Yeah. When you measure glutathione levels in individuals who are about like 100 years old, you find that they don't have low glutathione levels, they have high glutathione levels. Why? Who said that? The same person who won the book. That's why they're 100. Because they had the genetic inherent ability to maintain high glutathione levels so that their friends and their enemies were selected out of the population. So that's a very interesting and curious finding in glutathione in the aging process. That's glutathione in aging. Let's look at glutathione and general health. Here's a study, I think this was, this was a study done in Florida. I guess Florida and Kelowna is a good place to do studies on older people. And what they did is they measured glutathione levels in different subjects. young, healthy people, high glutathione levels. Healthy older people, meaning they didn't really need to go to the doctor. They went when they had a problem. Older people that would go see the doctor on a regular basis to get the prescriptions refilled, their blood pressure measured, and finally, people in the hospital. And a perfect correlation. The sicker you were, the lower your glutathione levels were. And this wasn't just, I mean, this study was in physical illness, but there are other studies looking at mental capacity, studies looking at who's out there, which person is out there playing cards, going to a restaurant, and who's sitting at home complaining about a sore back. So glutathione, correlation with age, glutathione, correlation with general health. Well, what about healthy people? Here's a study that we did at McGill University where we took young athletes, and at the beginning of the summer, we put half of them on Immunocal, which is a glutathione precursor, and half of them on a placebo. And we had them work out over the summer. At the end of the summer, we brought them back and measured them for muscle strength. And their performance, their muscle strength and endurance was between 10 and 15% more in the Immunocal. This is crazy numbers. Crazy numbers considering high-end athletes are trying to get another 0.5% to win a gold instead of getting 5th place. And when we published this study, the phone was ringing off the wall. Trainers, owners of teams, individual players. The other day I showed this slide to, I think it was a bunch of young soccer players, and I said the phone was ringing off the wall. And they looked at me like, what? You have phones on the wall? So it's not just sick people. It's not just old people. Even the healthiest individual can benefit from this. Who can't benefit from being stronger, faster, having more energy, smarter? We're doing studies in the brain now. I mean, this is for everybody. So if you remember these three things, AID, then you probably understand 90% of what glutathione does. And the problem is that we're always losing glutathione. There are always things that are tapping into our glutathione levels. And that could be the drugs that you're taking, a poor diet, injury, stress, infection, pollution, aging, on and on and on. And all of these tap into your glutathione levels fall, and you end up with an older cell, a sicker cell, and worst case scenario, a dead cell. So we have to do everything we can to maintain our glutathione levels. Here is perhaps the most important slide for you tonight. If you're going to remember one slide, this is the slide to remember. You can't eat glutathione and expect it to raise the glutathione levels in your body. If you eat glutathione, it becomes rapidly broken down in your digestive system and ends up in Lake Okanagan. You can't eat glutathione. So how do you get your glutathione levels up? You give your body the building blocks. You give your cells what we call precursors for your cells to be able to manufacture its own glutathione. If you walk away with anything, that's the message. And what we're talking about, of course, is this product called Immunocal. It was developed at McGill University. We've been doing research on this upwards of 40 years. This was launched 18 years ago as a commercial enterprise. And we have the ability in Canada, I know this doesn't look like much, but when you're dealing with natural products in Canada and United States, you're not allowed to make any medical claims. Whether it's true or whether there's patents, you can't say that a natural product affects anything about your health. But we, after sending van loads of research to Ottawa, we got what's called an NPN number that allows us to say that taking Immunocal will help your immune system. Sounds benign, but I tell you, it's a big, big struggle between the pharmacy industry and the people who produce natural products. There's a lot of things that we can talk about, but I don't want to get into a political discussion unless there's more BC wine there. So how does Immunocal work? Simply, it gives your body the building blocks so your cells can make its own glutathione. And we have many, many patents, what we call method of use patents. This is not a manufacturing patent. This is not a description of a molecule. This is a patent that's kind of unique to the pharmacy industry, saying that if you take this, then that happens to you. Okay? It's a very, very difficult patent to get because you have to back it up with a ton of research. And we're quite unique in this area. The credibility for me and for the health professionals that I spoke to last night, it's all about research. You can say what you want theoretically, or you should do this, or the Yanomamo Indians have been taking it for 10,000 years. And no, for a conservative scientist, for a researcher, for a doctor, the three most important things are research, and, okay. And so, not just research. Research is like food. There's good stuff and there's bad stuff. We're talking not about research done in the test tube. We're not talking about research that's done in a rat. You want to know that there were double-blind clinical trials, statistically relevant, done in human beings. And if you look at most natural products, that's a rarity. Rarely will you find that. And this is a company that's been doing this for decades. We have dozens. And you need to look this up. Because, yeah, I'm giving a talk about health and talking about science. I'm ultimately being paid by a company to market a product. Your health is the most important thing you have in your hands. So I urge you, go home and do your homework. And when you look up the importance of glutathione in every single cell of your body, you'll know that you made the right decision. Anybody seen this book before? The nice navy blue book. The pharmacists know it. It sits on the desk of every pharmacist. It sits on the desk of every doctor. What it has is all the prescriptions that I can write your prescription for, all the pharmaceuticals. But there's a non-pharmaceutical, non-prescription thing in there under I called Immunocal. So if you want, and I'm a doctor, I urge you always tell your health professional not only what drugs you're taking, but they need to know what supplements you're taking. And if you speak to a pharmacist, they really want to know what supplements you're taking because there could be drug supplement interactions and all this other stuff. So we're in there. And if you want to take it, have your doctor look at it, flip open to the eye, indications, contraindications, clinical pharmacology, and all the rest of that dry stuff that doctors love to look at. So after all that, how you all doing? Well, maybe the next time I come back to Kelowna and I ask you, how are you all doing? And you say, fine. And I ask you, how do you know? You'll tell me, you're taking Immunocal and raising your glutathione levels. Thank you very much.